Hello, everyone. It is an honor and a privilege. I'm humbled to be your moderator tonight. My name is Jeremy Bird. I'm the Deputy Director with Organizing for America, the grassroots organization. The grassroots organization fighting hard for the president and his agenda. I want to just thank everyone first tonight. Those of you who are in the room, I want to thank you for being here. And for those of you who are watching across the country at thousands, hundreds of house parties across the country, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. In just a few minutes, you're going to hear from the president. He's going to be taking some questions from some of you here in the audience. He'll also be taking some questions that were submitted. But before we get to the president, I would like to introduce you to Governor Tim Kaine, the chairman. As you all know, Governor Kaine is the chairman of the Democratic National Committee, and he happens to be joining us tonight live from one of our house parties in New Hampshire. Governor Kaine.
Hey, Jeremy, and to all of you at GW and in hundreds of house parties all over the United States, I'm Tim Kaine. I'm glad to be with you. I am in the home of Gray and Tara Chenoweth in Manchester, New Hampshire, with Congressman Paul Hodes, who's going to be the next U.S. Senator from New Hampshire. Right here. All right. All right. It is great, and we're anxious to hear the president take questions and talk about the choice that's facing the American public. It's a choice about, do we want to invest in our future and keep moving our nation forward with progress that President Obama and Democrats in Congress are pursuing, or do we want to go backward and embrace the failed policies of the past that put America into a lost decade? That is the clear choice. I hear folks on the other side say they want to take our country back. You know what? We don't need to go backward, because there's nothing good about backward that I'm interested in. Instead, I want to have the president's back and continue to fight for progress by going back to the polls on November 2 and electing great partners like Paul Hodes and others who are going to work together with President Obama. Jeremy, we're going to turn it back to you and listen tonight. But to all of you all over the country who've been part of this great effort, keep up the good work. Persuade your friends and neighbors to come out on November 2. We got an important choice before us, and you're going to help us do some great things and really surprise people with a lot of big wins. Thank you for a lot, and Jeremy, back to you.
Thank you, Governor Kaine. Thank you, Governor Kaine. It is now my honor to introduce to you Sarah Hinkfist. Sarah grew up in Wisconsin and most recently moved to Arlington, Virginia, where she works now as a consultant. In 2008, Sarah cast her first ballot. Sarah?
Good evening, everyone. As Jeremy said, my name is Sarah Hinkfist. I'm originally from Milwaukee, and I now live and work in Arlington. It is my honor to be here with you tonight. I was first inspired by President Obama on that cold day in January 2007 when he announced his candidacy for president. Over the course of the magical 2008 campaign, his words and deeds continued to inspire and uplift me to discuss politics with my friends and become more involved with my community. As a first-time voter in 2008, I was honored to cast my vote for President Obama, knowing that I had done something good for my country. I know that I shared that same passion and pride with millions of other youth across the country. And it is that progress that we stood for in 2008 that we have to return to and make sure we don't lose in these next elections. We must stand by the allies of the president. We must return to the polls on November 2nd, and we must motivate our friends to do so as well. We must get involved. The president is depending on us, and our future depends on us. It is now my immense pleasure and honor to introduce the President of the United States, Barack Obama.
Well, hello, everybody. Hello. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Please have a seat. Thank you so much. First of all, Sarah, I think you've got a future. You sounded really good. I was persuaded. So thank you for the wonderful introduction. I want to thank Tim Kaine and Paul Hodes, who are up in New Hampshire and doing great work. Jeremy, thank you for helping to moderate. And I also want to thank Steve Knapp and the president of GW and all the GW family for helping to host us here today. Please give them a big round of applause. Thank you. Now, one thing about being president is that you hear yourself talk all the time. So I do not want to spend a whole bunch of time with a long opening speech. Let me just make a few remarks at the top, and then I really want to hear from you. And I know we're not only getting questions from the audience, but we're also going to be getting questions through the internet and Skype and a whole bunch of other things that Malia and Sasha understand, and I'm still trying to sort out. You know, when you think back to almost 2 years ago, election night when I stood in Grant Park in Chicago, or the inauguration here in Washington, D.C., there was just such an incredible sense of possibility and promise. We had run a very unlikely campaign. It was a campaign based on not fancy endorsements and big special interest money, but it was all based on grassroots participation. Ordinary folks who had decided that the country was on the wrong track and we needed to get involved. And one of the most inspiring things about the campaign was how so many young people, like Sarah, got involved in public life for the first time. Because what that signaled was a reaffirmation of a central American truth, which is our destiny is not written for us by somebody else. Our destiny is written by us. When we decide to join together and make common cause, then there's nothing we can't accomplish. And so we overturned a lot of conventional wisdom in this town as a consequence of that election. What we understood but maybe didn't fully appreciate was that I was taking office at a time of extraordinary crisis in this country. We had just gone through a decade in which job growth had been sluggish, in which middle-class families had seen their wages and incomes actually go down rather than go up. People had seen their health care costs rise, their college tuition rise. They had a sense that maybe the American dream was increasingly out of reach for so many people. But what we found out when I was sworn in was that we were possibly down a path to a second Great Depression. The financial system had melted down. We had lost 4 million jobs in the 6 months prior to me taking office. We lost 750,000 jobs the month I took office, 600,000 after that, 600,000 the month after that. And so the hole that had been dug was very deep. And my first challenge was to make sure that we didn't slide any further. And we had to take a whole set of emergency actions, some of which, frankly, were unpopular. Some of which I hadn't talked about in the campaign because we hadn't anticipated having to take these drastic emergency steps. But my first job was to make sure that we stopped the slide, and we did. And so now we have an economy that's growing again. We have seen 9 consecutive months of private sector job growth. The financial system is stabilized. And yet, because of that hole, you've got millions of people across the country who are struggling. And some of you know in your own families those struggles. People who can't find work despite sending resume after resume out. Small business owners who still are having trouble getting loans. Young people who are still having trouble financing their college educations. People who are worrying about losing their homes to foreclosure. So there's a lot of anger and there's a lot of frustration and a lot of fear across the country. And one of the challenges of this election is to make sure that we understand that as difficult as things are and have been over the last 2 years, we are moving in the right direction. And the question is going to be whether, once again, hope overcomes fear. Because what essentially the other side has decided is that they're going to try to ride fear and anxiety all the way to the ballot box on November 2nd. And frankly, and I'm just going to be blunt, some on our side have said to themselves, well, you know what, everything that we thought was going to happen hasn't happened immediately in 20 months, and so maybe we don't have the same enthusiasm and excitement and energy as we did that first time around. The most important message I can deliver to all of you today is, number one, over the last 20 months, not only have we prevented America from slipping into a Great Depression, but we finally started tackling those structural, fundamental issues that all of you cared so much about and that we campaigned on. So we now have a health care reform in place that can make sure that young people all across America can stay on their parents' health insurance until they're 26 years old, that makes sure that seniors have a Medicare system that they can count on and don't have, over time, a donut hole that leaves them in the terrible choice of, do I buy my prescription drugs or do I instead pay the rent? We have also set it up so that over time the cost of health care can go down, which will be an enormous relief for small businesses and families, as well as the federal government, because frankly we couldn't afford the trajectory that we were on. We have reformed our education system in fundamental ways. All across the country you're seeing investments in science and math education and teacher recruitment and clearing away some of the red tape and bureaucracy that was preventing us from making sure that our kids got the best possible start in life. And we also transformed the student loan system so that a lot of young people here at GW and all across the country are now receiving billions of dollars of additional assistance that previously had been going to banks and unwarranted subsidies. We, across the country, have seen investments in clean energy